Hey, everybody, welcome to day 8 of the Leadership Bridge Awareness Week. This is the final day that I'm going to talk about really some of the concepts in the book that I've written that'll be published at the end of this month, which is The Leadership Bridge: How to Engage Your Employees and Drive Organizational Excellence. And really, as I've mentioned all along here, really that's what we're doing. When we engage employees, we do drive organizational excellence. And I'm not just talking about profitability. We really drive organizational excellence in regards to culture. And I believe when we're driving culture in a way that's focused on excellence, then profitability, the ability to innovate and overcome challenges becomes that much greater. So the beginning of the week, we talked about really building bridges with ourselves first. That really, to be a better leader, I think requires us to have a better look at how are we built? How is the bridge within us been built? And if that bridge is not strong, then it's very difficult for us to build bridges with those people around us. And if you think about it, that's all that we do. Our relationships are all based on bridges. And as I've mentioned all along, is that if you look to any relationship that you have, imagine that it's a bridge, and imagine what that bridge looks like. What is it like to cross that bridge with this individual? Is it something that you enjoy doing? Is it something that looks pleasing when you cross it, or is it a bridge that has rust on it and potholes, and maybe it's even in such disrepair that at times you're concerned about crossing it? We all have the ability to repair those bridges, and it's all based on behaviors. And that's really the middle part of this book. Talks about a model that I've used for almost a decade now, and has proven to be very effective in terms of developing relationships with other people on your team, other people in the community, family members, friends, whatever that relationship is. These 6 behaviors, these 6 cables that we talk about, is really about building that bridge. So we talked about congruence and about building appreciation and belongingness, and then around listening, and then empathy. And yesterday we talked about clear expectations. Well, as we move on, there's a third section to this book that really goes into a lot of the science and application of things like goal setting, and how do we do that, and neuroplasticity, that what creates change. And that oftentimes, and I can tell you, I've been involved with many of these when I was with organizations, that we do these great 3-day workshops, and then that was it. Nothing after that. And we know that that doesn't work long term. There's no way that, for the most part, those things are effective, because they don't provide any follow-up for us to apply what we've learned. Right? That's the neuroplasticity part, or what we can call automaticity. That the only way we get better is by doing. The intellect part is the easy part of this that most people get. I do a lot of work in different organizations at very high levels of the organization, and deal with some very bright people. Intellectually, they get this. This is not the problem. It's the application of it, and the consistent long-term application of it, more importantly. And we talk about that. How do we develop those behaviors that happens? As a matter of fact, I'm reading an incredible book right now called The Control Heuristic, and the author is Luca Delano, or I'm sorry, Luca. I gotta look at it again. Luca Delana, not with an O. And the book is really rooted in science, but it puts it in a way that, to me, is so relatable in regards to how do we create changes. That we want to do something, but we almost sabotage ourselves, or don't do the things that we need to do to have that happen. I'm actually going to be interviewing him on my podcast, so stay tuned for that. I can't tell you how excited I am for that. That will be in June, and I think that's going to be an incredible episode, talking about really how do we create change. What's the science that we can leverage to help us to create the change that we want to create long term? And if we can do that for ourselves, we can do that for others. So the last thing in the third part of this book that I wanted to talk about on this last episode is around resistance. Why do people resist our requests? And I've done a lot of work in the area of influence. I was actually able to go through many years ago, probably almost a decade ago. I went through a program down at Arizona State University with Dr. Robert Cialdini, who's one of the world experts in regards to influence. And um, he's got a number of books out there. One, probably one of the most popular being Influence. But he talked about 6 principles of influence, which are very powerful in terms of understanding how they impact people's decision-making process. And again, whether you have a GED or a PhD, we oftentimes make decisions very much the same way. And I think that's important for us to recognize. So from that, what I then did was looked at, well, what are the reasons why people say no first? Because that's oftentimes what happens. If you think about it, most of us, especially in new situations, and somebody makes a request of us, if we don't know this person, um, or it's a new situation, we are more hesitant to say yes to somebody because we're trying to protect ourselves. We don't want to agree to something that is going to negatively impact us. So from that, what I created was called the GREAT model. And it's another acronym. So each of the letters in GREAT stands for a certain resistor that we run into. So the first one is around goodwill. That as somebody that's being asked to do something, I might be looking at you, if you're the leader, of saying, do you really care about me as an individual? You're asking me to do this, but is it something that's just going to benefit you, or does it also benefit me as well? And if I think that you're somebody that really is only interested in yourself and what you get out of this, I'm going to resist. I'm less likely to want to follow where you're asking me to go, because I feel like the only reason that you're asking me to do this is because it's in your best interest. So goodwill, we need to create goodwill, and Cables does that. When we're demonstrating those 6 Cables behavior, we're building goodwill. So the next is around reactance, and that's really could be personality styles. How I approach somebody to do something. If I'm aggressive in my approach to them, or too forward, or maybe I'm too passive in how I'm asking somebody to do something, that can create reactance. Again, we talk about it in Cables under appreciation, that we need to pause and take times to recognize other people for who they are, in diversity, and how important that is. But reactance is one of those that if I feel like we're not connected, or maybe I feel like you're pushing me to make a decision on something or to act a certain way, even if it's something that I want to do, I could be more willing, or more likely to want to resist you, even if part of it I know is would benefit me. I'm tired of you pushing on me to make a decision on this. So the next we talk about in the GREAT model. So we've talked about G, the goodwill, R, the reactance. The next is we talk about really experience or expertise. Is what you're asking me to do? Are you qualified to be able to ask me to do this? Why should I trust you that what you're asking me to do, you really have the ability to do that, right? Things are going to turn out okay. You know that we're going in the right direction. So it's an important one for us to recognize. This we can often see if we're talking about new managers, people coming into new companies, right? There's a testing probably that goes on in regards to expertise or experience. If I'm taking on a new team, people might be sort of poking to say, is this person really up to the challenge of this? So something to keep in mind. So the next one is apathy, right? In this GREAT model. And that's oftentimes, well, what we're doing now works fine. We don't need to make a change. Why would I need to make a change? I like the way things are going right now. An important one for us to recognize that we are more motivated to avoid a loss than a gain. That's just the reality of it. And there's a lot of research that backs up that we are more motivated to avoid a loss than a gain. So how we structure things can be very important here in terms of getting people to follow our lead or go in our direction, that we sometimes spend so much time talking about the benefits that are going to be experienced when we make a change. We may be better off at times of talking about what we're going to lose, what we're at risk of losing if we don't make a change. That can be more beneficial. I'm working with an organization right now that's going through a medical records conversion, right? And I've said that a lot of them are talking about the benefits of making this change, and they're getting resistance, right? Because there's a lot of people that say, well, the system that we have now works fine. I don't have any issues with it. The new one actually doesn't do some of the things that it might be in the best interest of those trying to encourage people to embrace the change, is to talk about what is going to be lost if they don't make this change. What are the future challenges that are coming up that this system addresses, that if we don't make this change now, we're at risk long term of being in a much worse position. And then the last in the great model that we talk about is around trust, right? Have I developed trust with the group that I'm asking them to go in my direction? And again, we can lean back to cables and look at all 6 of those behaviors. When we're modeling those on a consistent basis, we're developing trust. We are building trust with that group. That bridge is very strong. So that when we're asking people to go in our direction, that they feel comfortable with following us. Not that they might not still be nervous about things, but they believe that we have their best interest at heart, and we're going to do what's right for them. So that's the great model, and that's about resistance. Again, the last chapter of the book, really, or the last segment of this book, part 3, really deals with things around resistance, goal setting, and coaching. How to coach employees around performance. I've spent over 10 years developing a lot of the models, refining a lot of the models, using a lot of the research to develop this book. And in the environment that we're in right now, I truly believe that this has the ability to make a huge impact on the lives of those people that report to you and that are around you. And if you think about behaviors, which is all we're talking about here, is that our behaviors will either build barriers or bridges to those around us. That's it. Our behaviors are either going to build barriers or bridges. You are the architect, the engineer, and the builder of the bridge that you're building with those around you. You have the ability to make a huge difference. The behaviors that I talk about in this book, the cables model as the foundation of developing those relationships with others, building that bridge. The beginning part of this bridge talking about or exploring ways that you build a better bridge with yourself. And then the last part of this book about helping others really to build their bridges too, provides a holistic approach to this. I hope you'll have an opportunity, as I've said before, there's a promotion going on this until the book is launched, where you can buy one copy and gift another copy at a significantly reduced rate. And I hope you have an opportunity to do that. I'd also love, if you have already purchased this book, is to provide feedback once you get it and let me know how this book has impacted you, or what things maybe could be added to make it even better. Because as my tagline is, rise above your best, that's something that I'm always trying to do as well.